Good morning, everybody. It's June 10th, Tuesday. So that means it's a Talk About It Tuesday. I guess actually every other Tuesday these days. My name is Anderson Brooms, GIS Program Manager for the State 911 Board. With me today is Adam Brown and Rachel Morrison.
Hello.
Hello.
And we are here to talk to you about the individual GIS data requirements for the statewide GIS data remediation project. And we also have Jeremy Mangin from Datamark who will be speaking to you in a minute. But I wanted to open with a little brief history of what the state data remediation project is, what InDigital's involvement with that is, and what Datamark's involvement with that is. So about a year ago, we began planning out our roadmap for transitioning to fully compliant next generation 911 operations. You all know about Angen and what Angen can do and does for you on a daily basis. But I've long said that they use the analogy that if Angen is the vehicle, GIS is the engine that drives the Angen vehicle for NG 911 core services. So working closely with InDigital, we developed a minimum GIS data requirements for powering the NG core services that InDigital is developing. We took that to Datamark and said, okay, Datamark, in terms of validations to meet the NENA I3 GIS standards requirements, what does that look like? And InDigital outlined 27 validations within the VEP platform that when remediated, would meet the InDigital GIS data requirements for next generation 911 core services. When I initially ran the report out of VEP asking the question, how many ECDs met the InDigital GIS data requirements out of the box? We had 2, which is not unexpected. We've never asked districts to map their data to a specific set of validations and or subset of I3 requirements. We've just generally nudged districts that this needs to be done because GIS will matter one day. Well, that day has come, and the InDigital GIS data requirements are the guiding point to which we point districts to remediate their data. That said, once we discovered that only 2 districts met the minimum data requirements, we knew we had a big lift on our hands, and we partnered up with Datamark to begin a statewide data remediation / editing project, offering to take the district's GIS data and edit it to meet those InDigital data requirements. I'll have some maps about where we are with that project after Datamark Jeremy Mangin speaks, but that's just sort of a brief history as to what the project is. What we're going to speak to you today about is the deliverables you get back and what to do with that when your project is finished, how we'll assist you with that. And then I'll speak to the necessity of getting that done, and then Rachel will speak to what we're going to do with that data. So without further ado, Jeremy, if you're available to unmute and share screen.
Yes. All right. Let me share my screen now.
We've got it on our end.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, anyone that I haven't met yet, nice to meet you. I'm going to go through this brief PowerPoint on client verification, and then I'm going to show a few examples in data. It'll actually be Terran ECD's data. So if anyone from Terran is on the call, thank you for that. All right. So let's go to the next slide. All right. So what is a client verify? For our purposes, a client verify is something that we've called out in the data as needing additional information from the ECD to actually ascertain what the resolution should be. So let me take it a step back and say we have validations that we run your data through as part of this process. And it checks for data quality issues in your data, and it also checks for NENA standards or InDigital standards because they're one and the same issues in your data. And those are spit out through VEP as anomalies that are displayed in different markups layers. So we would status it in that way. Like I said, if we cannot resolve the highlighted issue using our resources that we have available, if we need a decision from the ECD, or if we need to call out some kind of action that needs to occur otherwise by the ECD. So those are the main reasons that you would see a client verify occurring. All right, so these markups layers, there are actually multiple, and they all are associated with different pieces of data or layers of data. So there is the markup area, which is going to be calling out any issues in your boundary layers. For the digital scope of work specifically, that's only going to really be touching on the PSAP and the provisioning as far as spatial attributes go, or spatial validations go. The markup line is going to be calling out any issues in your road center lines, and then also the association between your road center lines and your address points, what we call fishbones. Those will also be highlighted in the markup line. The markup point is going to be associated with the address points. And then the markup table is going to be associated with your non-spatial data. So that will be anything associated with the MSAG or the ALI. So those are the 4 different markup layers where you might see a client verify, and chances are in each one of those, there will be client verifies if they're returned to you. All right, so actual resolution of client verifies. Just because you've received your data deliverable, that does not mean that everything is great in your data. You're all done. You're all good to go. There are pretty much always going to be client verifies, like I said previously. Ideally, you as the ECD would go through and verify every single client verify that was called out. So review it, and then you can either resolve it if you have that extra information, or you can mark it as an exception in the data saying that, yeah, this is how the data should be, essentially. There are going to be a lot of client verifies that are associated with exported data. So and a lot of you have probably received your deliverables at this point. I know there are still a lot that are still in progress or haven't started yet. But as far as deliverables go, there is a data deliverable, and then there's also a data exports geodatabase deliverable. And that data exports will actually have all data that is exported outside of your boundaries. And then also outside, or not outside, sorry. Also any duplicated address points, we export those into that export geodatabase as well. And we do that because InDigital requires those to be exported out. So they require those to not be in your data set, essentially. We don't want to just delete those. So we want to deliver those back to you to be reviewed. And that's kind of the process that we've decided on with the state of Alabama. So just to reiterate, any features that fall outside of your provisioning boundary will be exported into this, this data exports geodatabase. And then as far as duplicated address points go, we export all but one of the involved duplicated address points. And so all of those exported features are going to have client verifies associated with them, because we don't want to just export them and then have you wonder why they were exported, right? So those client verifies specifically will require you to kind of do some extra research. And I'll go over that in one of the next slides. Just going to quickly go over what the markups layers look like and some of the information that we provide you to help with your resolution or review. So there are multiple fields in there that can kind of call out the issue that is being found, or the reason that we put it as a client verify. We have the status field, which simply identifies it as a client verify. The justification field calls out exactly what the reason was that it was status as client verified, so the justification for it being status. And then the comments field is kind of an open field where we put any additional information that would help you verify or what exactly needs to be verified, or any information calling out the decision that needs to occur. So those three fields are what you're really going to want to look for when you open up those markups layers. And then, of course, there are some other fields that actually call out the issue that is being highlighted that I'll point out once we get into the actual data shortly. All right, so some common client verify scenarios. Like I said, the RCL not contained within boundary and AP not contained within boundary. I see that there is a question that popped up. I'll answer that after I finish this portion. Those specifically are pretty much going to be in every data set, and those are the ones that fall outside of your provisioning boundary. So your process there would be to verify if those outside features should be added back to the data set. And if they should, then you need to update the provisioning boundary and potentially the PSAB boundary to encompass those as well. And you'll probably want to communicate with your neighbors as well, right? And make sure that they don't have that data in their data set, because you don't want duplicative data, ideally. The next one that is very common, the AP duplicate point that I alluded to previously. The two potential scenarios there are going to be if there's a potential sub-addressing scenario where you might have a multi-unit structure and you have a lot of address points on that structure, but there's no sub-addressing to differentiate those address points. And so in that case, you would ideally want to ascertain what that sub-addressing should be and then apply it and pull those back into your data set, because most of those points would have been exported as duplicates. Another scenario that we are finding quite a bit is you have, let's say you have two address points. They both have the same address. One of them seems to just be kind of in the middle of nowhere, and one of them is on a structure. That point that's in the middle of nowhere, we're going to status that as a potential delete to recommend deletion. And then on the other address point, the one that we think is a valid address point, we'll point to that other address point to say, yeah, that one should be deleted. So you're going to see that fairly frequently. The one that we think should be deleted would have been exported. The one that we think is a real address would stay in the data set in that scenario. And then this one's kind of widespread and there are a lot of facets to it, but AP not reflected, that one you would see exactly what is causing it to not reflect. And then you would look at that justification and comments field and you would see how you could get that to reflect appropriately with the road center line. So I have some scenarios in the data, but I do see a lot of questions popping up. I can answer those and then we can jump to the scenarios. Let me see where I can look at the chat. There it is. All right, so there was a question saying, where do we find the client verify in VEP? So in VEP, you can actually, if you're looking in your map, there are a few ways that you can go about this. If you're looking in your actual map in VEP, you can actually see the markups layers in there. So you can open those attribute tables and review them in that way. You can also download the validations. So let's say that you're rerunning validations later on after we've already delivered your data back to you. Those validations are the markups layers. So when you download those validations after a validation run, those will be in there. And if there was a client verify previously attached to an existing issue, those would still download out. But otherwise, I think the best course of action is to look at the data deliverable you were passed back and actually review those client verifies in the data deliverable. Because there will be some client verifies when a validation run occurs that will be removed if the data was exported. So that data delivery will be your best bet for reviewing those client verifies. All right, and then let's see. Isn't verify
Jeremy,
field? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I'm stepped on your toes. I want to. I'll let you read Kirsty's question, and then I want to chime in briefly
Okay.
about what verify actually means in both questions.
Okay. Cool. All right. So let's see. Isn't verify field a way around neighbors' centerline issues, especially if it's a centerline that also serves as a provisional boundary? So you're basically saying that if this falls on the outside boundary, verify would be a way to circumvent actually having that flag as an issue. Am I correct in that understanding?
Yeah, this Kirsty's question is part of a broader conversation that's I think been born out of when a road center line is actually on a boundary and how districts maintain that because it does flag as an anomaly. So what I was going to say earlier is to be clear in Jennifer's question, client verify and verify a field within the structure of the GIS data are very different things. And verify to Jennifer's question is what we're having this conversation about, talk about it Tuesday today. Verify and Kirsty's question is an actual field and data maintenance structure that will allow a district to specify what side of a road center line to tell the NG Core Services to look to see if there's a valid address. So verify left and right, the concept of a road center line. Road center lines have directions have left and right, same as addresses. And verify left, yes, verify right, no, tells the core services engine to only look on the left side. I don't want to get too far in the weeds about that, but I also wanted to address Kirsty's question in terms of seeing it in chat and what it actually means.
So I think you're talking about the validation left and right field. So it's valid
The
R.
validation, not verify. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, those fields specifically, you're right. Those call out to the core services provider if they should be validated. And that is how we're using those fields for sure. So yeah, that is a good question, and that's how we would identify if that should be validated as part of the data set or not. All right, let me show you some scenarios that I have from Taryn. Here we'll start with this scenario. So all of these address points. Can you guys still see that? Okay, I guess I'll just make sure now that I'm sharing this.
No, yeah, I was about we need you to reshare your screen, please, sir.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, got it now.
Okay. So this is kind of an interesting scenario. The provisioning boundary seems to just encompass the address point, so that's probably why it's displayed in this way. But that's problematic because every address point in a data set should have a corresponding road center line, ideally, to be associated with it. Otherwise, they're going to be called out as not reflected. So in this case, if I just show you the attribute table down here. So if we look, let me just quickly show you how it's calling out the issue that's occurring here. We have a violation field. That's kind of the general violation, the validation that is being flagged for this issue. Then we have a description field that basically gives more information. And especially for AP not reflected in RCL, there are, I think, 7 different descriptions that can flag, and they will specifically call out the issue that you're seeing. So in this case, it's saying there's an inconsistency between the address point and road centerline street attribute fields. That's because there is no corresponding road centerline for it to reflect within. And so,
Jeremy, can I interrupt real quick?
Please.
I want to take this opportunity to kind of drive Jennifer's question home. For those that are unfamiliar with the platform Jeremy is displaying, this is ArcPro, which is an Esri product. If you use ArcMap or ArcPro, this data, what Jeremy's showing, is available. This is also available in a very similar format within your VEP structure that is in your map functionality. We're not going to touch on that today. If you don't know what I'm talking about, attend a VEP training scheduled near you. Shameless plug. Or also just reach out to me. But also these descriptors, everything Jeremy is talking about, is also in the client verify or the deliverables once your remediation project is complete in both a downloadable markup, which Jeremy talked about, but also an Excel spreadsheet, which Jeremy identified as part of the deliverable. So I don't want anybody to see this pro format and think, well, I don't have that, so this is not available to me. It is available. If you have any questions, reach out to me and we can have a one-on-one call to sort of help you in whatever format is most digestible for you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we have, I know some ECDs still use shapefiles for their data. We've converted deliverables into shapefiles if needed as well. So yeah, we have plenty of options in that regard. But yeah, to your point, Anderson, this attribute table down here, so all of these different fields, they look the same in VEP, in the map in VEP. So let me go back over here. So this specific issue, our editors established as a client verify. We put the justification as missing road segment because there is no road segment that corresponds. And then for the comment, we put the actual street name just to kind of help with that. So in this case, you would identify, do I need a road center line in here? I have address points, so probably I do need a road center line to be reflected in here. But is this existing in my neighbor's data? Do I need to collaborate with them to kind of ascertain if there should be a road center line here? So that's kind of the process for this one. But this is kind of a rare scenario. It does happen on the outskirts of the provisioning boundary occasionally, where there's just a missing road center line for these address points. All right. This next one occurs somewhat frequently. I'll let the labels load in. There we go. Okay, so this one is essentially an issue where there are two address points for the same structure. And the two address points are actually corresponding to the two different roads that the structure is associated with. So it falls on a corner between these two roads, and there's an address point for each one, which is not ideal. Ideally, there should just be a single address point for this structure to identify what the address actually should be. So in this case, if we highlight this markup, and another point that I didn't really touch on, these markups are, they spatially duplicate the features that they are associated with. So you can see this falls directly on the address point that that it's highlighting, but it's a separate layer. So it's not associated with the address point other than the external NUID, which is the unique identifier in the address point that matches back to the markup point. So that's kind of the link between them. And then spatially, it does fall directly on it. The only one where that won't be a factor is the markup table, because that's a non-spatial table. So that relates to non-spatial features. So that wouldn't have any spatial component to it. All right, so going back to this scenario, ideally the way to resolve this, whoops, let me show this. We put it as a justification corner lot because it's on a corner, and that's kind of why it's trying to associate or has an address point for two different roads. And then in the comments, we put the two roads that are involved just for clarity. So ideally, the resolution here would be to identify which road the structure should actually be associated with, and then remove the address point that you don't want it to associate with. We can't really ascertain that with what we have on our side. Yeah, we can go in Street View and look, and yeah, it does look like maybe the driveway comes off here, but it looks like there might be another driveway coming off here too. So So yeah, that would be one where the ECD kind of needs to figure out exactly how it should be associated. All right, and then I have one final example. So this is an alias scenario. I'm going to turn off the provisioning boundary. Let these labels load in. Okay. So this one was interesting. There are all these address points along this street. The street is Alberta Jefferson Street. The address points all are 58th Street North. When we street view this area, the road seems to have street signs for Alberta Jefferson Street, but these address points do seem to have the address of 58th Street North when we did some other research. So this seems like kind of an alias scenario where maybe both of these street names correspond to this street, but we want these to match exactly. So ideally, the ECD would ascertain which street is the correct street and which street should be the primary street name associated with all of these features. So if we highlight the issue here and look at it, we put it as client verify with an alias justification because this is a potential alias for this street name. And then we put the two streets involved in that, the potential street names. So yeah, those are just some examples of what you might see in there. Any other questions? That was really all that I had to share at this point.
Who's ready to dive into client verify?
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate it. All right. Yeah. You ready for the next one? So what does all of what Jeremy discussed mean to you, the district? Adam's working through PowerPoint. Cool. So what does that mean to you, the district? The map on the left is where we stand with the remediation projects per ECD, which is how we are handling the distribution of the remediation projects. We have completed 52 projects, and there are 11 active projects and 23 that have yet to be started. If you are gray on the map on the left and would like to get started with the remediation project, we are looking for about 5 or 6 more projects to kick off and would love to engage with you to get your data edited to meet the InDigital standards. I'm going to let Rachel talk about what InDigital is going to do with the data once you meet the requirements. That I've espoused on that ad nauseum, but that's why we've invited InDigital here to talk about that. But the client verify, the rubber really meets the road in the map on the right. Like I said, we've had 52 projects be completed, but currently only 32 would meet what we call the acceptable threshold of minimum data requirements standards. If you are light green on the map on the right, you have some work to do on the client verify. And we're here to help. We are here to assist you and get you over that threshold of Datamark. I do that. I have 2 children in this scenario, InDigital and Datamark, and I mix their names up all the time. I don't have a favorite though, unlike my real children. There's some work to be done on the client verify. We need to get you over that threshold. I'm meeting with a district on Friday to help them understand what it means. I mentioned VEP training, which I'll highlight at the end of my spiel, but you are not, by going through a remediation project, you are not out of the box going to meet the InDigital data requirements, most likely. As Jeremy said, there will be some client verifies to go through. What the amount of that lift is determined based on what is returned to you in the project closeout. You get a package with the markups, your data, and the tables that Jeremy described. One very clear point of distinction I would like to make about the exceptions is when you mark an anomaly as an exception in your local VEP instance, it does not absolve you of the responsibility of that anomaly. What it does is it acknowledges in VEP that you accept that that is an exception to the anomaly reporting, and it makes it disappear in the markup. If that is a critical error, most commonly we see either duplicative address points or address points outside your provisioning boundary, which Jeremy touched on. If you mark those as exceptions, because the most common thing I see is I need my neighbor's data in my GIS layer because I need it for my cat, and you mark them all as exceptions, you are still passing faulty data to the aggregated data set, in which InDigital will flag through their spatial interface errors in your data that cannot be allowed in the system. So we're not going to cover everything in a 45-minute talk about it Tuesday. How do we educate districts on these issues? VEP training. We currently, I didn't put a slide together because that's not how my brain works, but we have training July 29th and 30th in Enterprise VEP training. It's a 2-day training. We go over the InDigital data requirements. We go over what client verifies are, how to remediate those, how to interact with VEP, all the things that you need to know to get you from the 90%, or if you're gray, below 90%, to the 98% threshold. We also have training on August 11th and 12th. Location to be determined, but we have fleshed out with Datamark availability for trainers. We just need to have a location, preferably in the Birmingham or Tuscaloosa area. So I'll pause there for any questions before I turn it over to Rachel to talk to you about what InDigital will be doing with your remediated GIS data. Adam, did I miss anything?
I don't think so. I'm not the GIS guy.
No, but you're the deputy director who keeps me in line.
No questions.
Okay, I don't hear any questions. All right.
All right. Well, and I'm kind of here to reiterate what Anderson says. I know y'all hear it from him all the time, but
Whether they like it or not.
whether you like it or not, just to kind of have another voice to say, continue to remediate your data and get it up to standard. Because it's coming faster than, it's been years, obviously, but it is kind of coming quickly. So, and I wanted to preface this by saying, it's not all on you. I've said this last time, but we have a job to do as a core service provider. The carriers have a job to do. The CPE vendors have a job to do as it relates to next gen. So it's not all on you, but your data is what will, drive all this and make all of those functional elements work together cohesively. And I wanted to touch on Client Verify because that was the first time, I've heard that as far as the remediation project. And I know you're mainly talking about this project now, but as we continue, that verification from you as a GIS authority will, be longstanding. As long as you're the GIS authority and we are accepting your data and sending you discrepancies, we are relying on you to verify, those discrepancies, to edit that data, to send it back up the chain, to us. And so while this is, mainly about Client Verify now, as we progress and use your data, you will also be doing that for us. So it will, kind of be forever.
What kind of process is that, Adam?
Iterative.
Iterative.
There you go. There you go. So I want to touch on that. Also, as you know, we're using your PSAT boundaries for wireless geo routing now. As we continue to move, towards the end of this year into next year, and we start accepting your road center line, the rest of the layers, your road center lines and your address points, I wanted to make a point to say, and I know we've talked about it, but as we start taking in those civic locations with the call, the first layer we are going to look at will be your address points. That will be, the main focus. That will be the most accurate. If we do not find a matching address point, we will go to your road center lines. And yes, Kirsty, discrepancies are from us. That will be, once we start accepting all that, we will have an automated way to send you discrepancies for the GIS data.
Which highlights why the provisioning boundary is super important as a data steward.
Yeah.
Yes. We have to know what you are in charge of, what you're in control of, who we need to send these errors to if we find any. And so as we start accepting these layers, we will kind of have kind of the same way, a cyclic testing of your data. We will run it through several validations. We will, you know, kind of bump it against our current alley records, do lots of different testing as far as PITFlow goes with our LVF and all of that. And we will send you discrepancies back, and it will kind of just go back and forth until, you know, the state or you as a GIS authority, both of y'all working together, say, hey, this, you know, we're ready to put this data into production. And so that will be, you know, as we're accepting all those layers, kind of that client verify, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's the way that we really need to communicate it.
Yes.
Discrepancy reporting, in digital calls it discrepancy reporting, Datamark calls it client verify. It's all the same thing.
Yes, yeah. Like, hey, here's an issue with your data. Tell us what to do with it, or you edit, adjust how you need to. So yeah, that will be, you know, coming up soon. That is really kind of all I had to say. You know, Alabama's kind of top of the list as far as GIS remediation. Y'all are doing really good. And just keep it up.
I want to, what Rachel described is very important in terms of driving the point home that even if the data, especially what I specifically am addressing is marking exceptions. If you mark an exception on bad data, that doesn't make it go away. It'll make it into the aggregated data set, which is the data set we will then pass to InDigital, and InDigital is going to do their due diligence and trust but verify that they cannot consume poor data or faulty data into their core services, and they're going to return that data to you for correction. So, you know, we're working hard with InDigital and Datamark to really frame the deal breakers, for lack of a better term, in terms of we know duplicative address points, we know addresses outside your provisioning boundary or no-goes, but the thing that you conceptually, to distill it down to its essence, need to think about is the point of the GIS data is to get a valid dispatchable location and to route the call to the correct 911 center the first time. So these are the things that we are asking of the GIS data to do. And so that really ultimately is what the remaining client verifies are. The stuff that InDigital, Datamark, golly, I do that all the time. Datamark could not make a determination on and requires local governance and authoritative knowledge on.
True that.
All right. I think hearing no questions, we have Laura Earhart on the phone next.
Hello, I am here. Just real quickly, I know that it's already 10:37. So non-compliance notifications were mailed yesterday. We have, built up and told everybody about our first official audit for the PST certification mandate, and we sent mailed letters out yesterday. An email will be coming later today from me to every ECD who received a letter. If I recall correctly, that was 19 or 20 ECDs. And so I just wanted to, to make sure everybody will be looking for those. You can go ahead before you receive it and sign into My Alabama and look and see what your problem areas are and what you need to do to fix them. But this is the beginning of that 3-month mark that you have to get back in compliance before funds are withheld. So if you have any questions or you want to discuss this, contact me. You can call my office or my cell phone, and I will be making phone call follow-ups in about 2 weeks if I haven't heard from every ECD that received a letter and an email. I'm ready for the next slide. This is just a quick little number. I think I posted this on a social media post as well, but I did just a little digging to see how many people were renewing in the next 3 months and what the CEU counts looked like. And there are 152 PSTs that renew in the next 3 months that do not have the 12 required. And the day that renewal hits, if those 12 are not there, then that agency becomes non-compliant. So, because of that, here's a few opportunities to get your training if you're not doing Virtual Academy Online. I'm ready for the next slide, please. There is an EMD course that is open June 23rd through 25th in Enterprise. You can register directly with Clarissa. Her email address is there. It's also on our website and on our social media. In July, there's a class in Opelika and Huntsville from Shannon Polito, and that class is filling up pretty quickly now. I checked registration this morning, and I think there are about maybe 5 to 10 spots left in each class. So if you haven't already, I would highly suggest registering. 8 hours, continued education. This is the Survive and Thrive 2-day comprehensive course. We had it full last time we had it. I think it was at the end of April, potentially end of March. I don't recall, but this is the same class, but this will be held in Coleman. I think there are 6 spots left in this class. So that is 16 hours. It is 2 days. Both days are required. It's not the same course for 2 days. It's a 2-day course. And Baldwin County, August 5th and 6th. And then I haven't opened it yet, and I didn't put a slot in here, but this crisis call training for ECCs is going to be in Escambia County at the end of October. And I have a few other locations that have requested it. So I'm working on September, November, December, and January dates for those. I would like to say, and I didn't put this in a slide, if you register for a class and you are unable to attend, it is extremely easy for you to go withdraw yourself. You just go in there and look under my training and then withdraw yourself from the class. One-step process takes a couple seconds. Whereas if you email us to withdraw you, it takes a little bit longer. It comes through me and Daniel, we go withdraw, and then we add someone from the wait list. If it is a full class, it would be super helpful if you guys could just do that directly. It'd be quicker for you guys and for us. So if you have questions on that, I think I put an image in our newsletter, and I also posted it on social media as well that had just a little snippet screenshot of how you withdraw yourself from the class. There's a caveat to that if you are in a secondary PSAP, you do not have access to My Alabama, so you could email us. And while I'm on that, just real quickly, if you attended classes or you send people to our classes and they are at a secondary PSAP, and they would not be able to access their certificates through My Alabama, they just need to email us if we don't get them to them in a timely manner. So,
Hey, Laura, can I jump in real quick?
please do.
From my experience in dealing with the app, the app requires, and also the classrooms require a registration cap. And if you don't withdraw yourself, it prevents other people from registering for that class that might want to take it. So as a courtesy to your fellow PSTs, if you know you're not going to be able to make it, please withdraw yourself from that class via the app.
Yes, thank you. I second that. I think that was my last one. Yep. That's all for me.
Thank you, Laura. We do have a note in here about webinar registration that.
I didn't know y'all had a slot in here.
Went through,
In a couple weeks.
yeah, a couple weeks to register for that. Is this similar to the one y'all have done previous, or is this a new one?
This is a newer one. This will
Okay.
have Mark Grady, our founder, as well as
Harriet.
Desna. Yes.
Yeah,
Oh.
her name.
Mark's a smart dude. You should listen to him.
Yeah, definitely. So sign up for this. Be some good information. Here's another training slide that has everything in one table. Obviously, this will be available when we PDF these and put them on the website, along with the recording of today's Talk About It Tuesday.
Adam, I'd like to highlight one thing that is not normally on the training list, and that is the June 25th, 26th ArcGIS Pro Basic Training in Baldwin County. I was fortunate enough to attend the training in Houston County a week or two ago, and that is a very impactful class for those that are not familiar with Pro. I would tell you the people that are transitioning from Map to Pro can benefit from that. One of the things I did learn is it is put on by Mississippi State, and it is free to attend for governmental employees, local and state. They also have an intermediate training, and I have reached out to Mississippi State to get both classes on the docket. And so more to come on that. But if you are within a short drive of Baldwin County and are doing the transition from Map to Pro, or never used Pro before, but are trying to learn because you're a Southern Software client, it is a class that you should attend, and it's free to attend.
Hey guys, can I say one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
This is Michelle. On this slide where you see hosted by, if it doesn't say AL 911 board, most likely you're not going to be able to sign up for it in the app. And so you'll need to check the website and there'll be a more information link next to this. And that's what you would need to click on to get information on registering for those classes that are not hosted by us.
That's a great point, Michelle, especially for the pro training, ArcGIS Pro, that Baldwin County is hosting that, scheduled at Mississippi State. You need to reach out to Scott Warner for registration for that class if you would like to attend.
Additionally, I'm getting information from the internet. And Digital also would like us to highlight the vesting user training that will occur July 8th through the 10th. 2 3-hour sessions per day. This is occurring over the time period of July 8th through the 10th. They're going to be 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. throughout those days. They're Baldwin County 911. The sign up and registration is on the app for those. So if you are a Vesta user, as far as your call handling system, whether on the hosted or premise system, and you need some refresher training, or you don't have official training other than on the job where you just show where to point and click, this is a good opportunity to have some in-depth training on your call handling system. So please sign up for that.
Those
Hopefully I
are
didn't miss
listed on our website. I didn't have enough room to put them on this slide. I just went through the end of June for this slide.
So you're saying we got stuff going on?
Yeah.
As a final reminder, today is the 10th of the month. If you want reimbursements at the end of this month, end of June, you can submit for your Legacy 911 cost reimbursement as well as PST course request for reimbursements. We'll get those processed and get them back to you by the end of the month. All right. So at the tail end of this, in the last 11 minutes, we've thrown quite a bit of information. Does anybody have anything else to add?
I think I saw Kirsty chat a question about data aggregation being.
No, you saw Michael. No, wait, never mind. You were correct.
I joked with Kirsty before, when I'm on a site visit or just not in the office, if you mark your data for aggregation and it doesn't immediately get sent to the aggregation process, because I get an email notification. If I'm at my desk or at my computer, I get a notification, I flag it. Otherwise, I'm out in the wild doing something, and there is a weekly aggregation that should be kicked off. And Kirsty's saying it's more than a week old, tells me that something got hung up in the system that I need to go look at. But that's the joke I make, is if you mark your data ready for aggregation and it doesn't immediately send you an email back that I kicked it off, it's because I'm not in the office.
Well, he's going to do that in just a few minutes.
I will. I will.
Are there any other questions from the audience or anybody else?
Oh, I know now why. I literally know now why. A cross-jurisdictional validation had been kicked off, and therefore the data aggregation can't run at the same time. I got that email as I was talking about it. So there you go. There's your answer.
So many things. Most of them I don't understand. All right. Well, we didn't quite keep you a whole hour. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day and a good rest of your week. Just a second. I'm sure that's not. All right. Thank you, James. Appreciate it. You guys have a good rest of your day. And if you need anything, we're all available at your disposal. So y'all have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye.